Here we go then, Saturday at Silverstone, it's qualifying. Far away, and you can see it in the distance. So that just adds to the drama and the tension, Martin Brundle, on what could be one of the best qualifying hours of the year.
It's going to be a challenge, no doubt about that, a drying track. What will the crossover point be where slicks suddenly become the right tyre to be on and the intermediates are overheating? But if it starts to rain again just towards the end of any of the three sectors of the qualifying coming up, then it'll be quite the scramble and a few shocks to come as well, I'd imagine. So it's just finely balanced, there's no doubt about it, Crofty, in terms of when to go out and which tyres to put on when you do it. 60% chance of rain. Lando Norris is saying he's feeling a bit tense, and he's the guy that set the pace, of course, in the first two practice sessions in the dry. First time in his career he's led FP1 and FP2. We had a wet FP3 session, 3 Brits in the top 3, which has boded very well for the majority of the fans that are here. But would you feel the tension going into this if you were a British driver once again at your home track? Absolutely, I'd feel the tension, whichever nationality I was, because it's a fearsome racetrack in challenging conditions. And let's remember, of course, they've got to second guess what the conditions are going to be like in tomorrow's race, because whatever they roll out of the pits wearing in terms of particularly rear wing downforce is what they'll start the race with. And, you know, that might not be absolutely perfect for a slippery, wet track today. That might be just what you need tomorrow. So some of them may have to compromise a little bit. Mercedes looked quick in the rain. Are they carrying more downforce than, say, this Red Bull or McLaren? McLaren and Red Bull looking at each other now, really fine-tuning their top speeds because they think they're going to be racing wheel to wheel again tomorrow. So a lot of sort of educated guessing going on, really, in terms of exactly how you prepare your car, how you load it with downforce for tomorrow's race.
If you were McLaren, you could split it a little bit. Give Oscar Piastri maybe a bit more top speed, a little less downforce, try and go for that pole. Give Lando Norris something that he can better race with tomorrow. If you're Ferrari, well, you've gone back to the old spec because the upgrades haven't worked. But would you split drivers if you were a team wanting to put pressure on Red Bull?
You can do that. In theory, you know, the optimum solution for both your cars. But if you're not 100% sure, the other problem then is which driver do you give the low downforce to, and which driver do you say, well, you're on the high downforce, because you might be disadvantaging one of them.
George Russell, we just saw him there, fastest in the third practice session. 0.03 of a second between himself and his Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris less than 0.2 away, and we have not had 3 British drivers qualifying 1, 2, 3 on the grid since South Africa in 1968 with Jim Clark, Graham Hill and Sir Jackie Stewart. It was Jim Clark's last F1 race, that one. Sir Jackie Stewart has been doing paddock tours today, Ted Kravitz. He's up for this qualifying, and I'm sure you are, as the green light is on.
It is, the green light is on. There is some blue sky around, plenty of white clouds, but some very threatening dark clouds as the weather is coming in. The wind's changed a bit from yesterday, Crofty. It's now coming in from the sort of northwest area to the Silverstone circuit. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know if it rains. But the two Saubers have gone out with a Williams and an Alpine early on, and it's the Saubers who really look like they're on their back foot going into this qualifying session. Zhou Guanyu 19th, Valtteri Bottas 15th, and and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas also suffering with Daniel Ricciardo down in the bottom 5. So they'll be looking for something to help them get out of this Q1 session. But make no mistake about it, at the front, Red Bull are worried about McLaren. Their chief engineer, Paul Pedals Monaghan, has been making a nuisance of himself, going down to the McLaren garage and staring into their garage to see what he can spy down there. Quickly shooed away by some McLaren mechanics. But so, yeah, Red Bull are concerned.
There's a small dry line forming already. Yeah, understood.
And unsurprisingly, everybody out there on intermediate tyres, they do exactly what it says on the tin. They're somewhere between the dry, slick tyres and the full wet tyres. The full wet tyres you very rarely use these days. They've got just enough groove in them, the Inters, to clear a little bit of standing water and general spray. And it won't be long, by the sounds of it. If we don't have more rain, it won't be long before somebody's risking it on a set of slicks.
Two McLaren cars coming out, then Oscar Piastri, and behind him, that man there, Lando Norris, who's gone into Q3, the top 10 on all 6 previous races here at Silverstone. And McLaren, the team that have got their cars into Q3 at every session in 2024. Big cheers for them, big cheers for this man as well. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time a pole sitter here at Silverstone, hasn't been on pole since 2020. He'll love these conditions. He'll probably like it a bit more if we get a bit of rain, a bit more rain. There's dark clouds overhead, but we can already, on the run down towards Stowe, see that dry line appearing.
We can. It's not far off slicks, but you've got to be able to get out and get on and keep the temperature in your slick tyres and keep them where you need them. They come out of the blankets at 70 degrees. And at the moment, there's just a little bit too much damp out there. The problem also is, should you run a little bit wide on your slick tyres when they put them on, you're straight onto damp track, and you've got double trouble then. Hamilton
going for a flying lap then. If you want to ride on board with Lewis Hamilton, you can do so. We've got all 20 drivers and their onboards as well. You need the Sky Sports app, and you need to log in with your Sky Sports ID. But if you're watching on Sky Stream, Sky Q or Sky Glass, or now, use the interactive button on your remote controls. Heading into Brooklands, Lewis Hamilton with a 31.1. That's half a second clear of Logan Sargent, who previously gone through there, but 3/10 behind his teammate George Russell, who's on the track pretty much at the same time.
Looks like the Haas team might even be waiting to see if they can go directly out on slick tyres and save a set of intermediates because they're limited through the weekend to 5 sets.
A Haas team who finished 6th and 8th in Austria. Fantastic result for them last time out. Takes them 7th in the championship table, 10 points clear of Alpine, for whom Pierre Gasly will definitely start at the back of the grid for the British Grand Prix because he's taken extra power unit penalties. So there's, every time we go on a curb, you'll see lots of spray, but look, hang her straight, there's that dry line.
I think we're looking at somewhere around a 135, 136, 1 minute to will be the crossover point. They were doing 38s this morning, still on intermediate tyres. And as soon as we see them go much faster than this, they'll be thinking of the dry tyre.
Hamilton then, round club corner, the final corner of the 18. Crosses the line with a 137.5, so right on the cusp there. George Russell next across the line, 137.8, just slots in behind his teammate. Once again, the Mercedes separated by only a few hundredths of a second. And here's Max Verstappen, who was on pole, of course, in Austria by a massive margin of 0.4 of a second last time out. His first pole in 4 races, going faster by a couple of tenths from the 2 Mercedes. Oh, and that is a power slide from Lando Norris to delight the crowd, but it is not the fastest way around Brooklands.
No, he's got a lot of confidence in the car, though, hasn't he? Because he just drove through it and just about dipped his left rear in the gravel coming out of Luffield there, and got on with it. You can really tell Lando's. I think he's half a second ahead of this car now, which is where you need to be. That's when you see a driver really on top of their cars and a bit more confident. And slides like that, when you're confident, you just turn into and carry on. When you're not confident, you spin off and you tighten up in the car and you panic a little bit. And it's all the psychology. I'm sure it's the same when you're trying to serve an ace or putt for a championship or head a goal in the penalty box.
The difference is you're sliding between a uh-oh and a yee-haw, yeah?
Yeah.
If you're confident, you'll give it the yee-haw, but you don't want to do it too often, and Lando Norris goes second fastest, only a few hundredths behind Max Verstappen.
And we just saw that big oversteer slider where he had to turn into it, keep your foot down. I'd like to explain to you how you know exactly how much steering to put in, but I can't. You just do.
Instinct.
You just feel it through all your gyros, your hands, your backside. Your eyes are the last thing to tell you you're sliding sideways. You're already, by the time your eyes work all that out, you've got too much yaw, you've got too much slide going on. Your senses tell you the car's sliding, you turn into it, and then you turn back out, and somehow it all works most of the time. There is no... that you can't start to think it through or put some logic into it. It's purely instinctive.
There's the dry and intermediates line on the track. You can see on your screen where it is dry. Down the Wellington Straights, past Brooklands, and all the way just before Maggots and Beckett's. I can tell you Kevin Magnussen is out on intermediate tyres, but Nico Hulkenberg still in the garage, still waiting.
So these tyres will quickly overheat. The kind of compound they use on these tyres is designed to run in the cooler temperatures of a wet track, so they very quickly start getting all furry around the edges of the tread, and you just slide, and it's horrible. And the harder you try to go fast, the slower you go, basically, when they get into that window.
Ferrari pit wall watching the skies as well as their monitors here, and Leclerc has come back into the pits after his first forays, and he's currently fifth fastest. We're watching the progress of Valtteri Bottas, two-time pole sitter, of course, here at Silverstone in the past, but he's never scored whilst driving for Sauber, and has a healthy lead against his teammate Zhou Guanyu, 11-0 in their qualifying sessions. Ted, down to you. Is it time for slicks?
It is time for slicks. The Ferrari, was it Charles Leclerc came in past me just a second ago. He's the first one to go to slicks. The wheel guns you can hear in the background are Sauber, and they are putting Valtteri Bottas onto slicks. Bit of a slow stop, but that's...
that was a late call, Ted. They weren't quite ready for him, I think.
It's just the last wheel coming out. So now they're just waiting to give him a bit of track position, and I'm expecting to see everybody else. So, yeah, it might have been Nico Hulkenberg waiting out to put the first one, but it was Charles Leclerc who got there first. Martin, wasn't it Ken Tyrrell, the late great Ken Tyrrell, who said, when it's not raining, fit dry tyres? Wasn't that his mantra? When it's raining, fit wet, and when it's not raining, fit dries.
Yes, possibly. I don't remember him saying that. I did drive for him for 3 years, wonderful man, but I don't remember. I more remember him saying, "Why did you crash my car again?"
And the answer?
I couldn't help it. The barrier jumped out and hit me.
It wasn't my fault. Lance Stroll goes seventh fastest. His teammate Fernando Alonso currently in the top 10. He got into the top 10 in Spain, of course, but missed out. Both Aston Martin drivers missed out on Q3 last time out in Austria. Here comes Oscar Piastri down towards Stowe. If others are going on to those slick tyres, then they'll be watching the data from the factory bases and on the pit wall, and they'll be making a decision soon as to whether their driver needs to go on. But Piastri continues on his way to finish this lap.
Yeah, frustratingly, you're just using up engine mileage and tyres and heartbeats for no reason, because as soon as you get a set of dry tyres on and it's dry enough, all of this becomes absolutely irrelevant, doesn't it?
But is it dry enough? It might be in parts, but is it dry enough all the way around to make these slick tyres work? And you don't want to be going and wasting soft tyres too early as well.
You don't, but as I said, as long as you can stay online, you're okay. This is still on intermediate tyres.
And that's not online.
No, they're just overheated. They've overheated. They've had enough. We're out of the window for these inters now. Yeah, so you only need, like your road car tyres, you only need tread on them to clear water. If you're not clearing water, you don't need any tread. And we've not got any water to clear now. So then you want the maximum amount of rubber on the racetrack you can get away with, as long as you can get them up to temperature and keep them there.
So, England, Switzerland a little later on, and for the Swiss team, Valtteri Bottas starts his latest flying lap. Talk us through this one, Martin. He's on those slick soft tyres.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit tense while he finds out exactly how much grip there is, but it looks more than ready now. More than ready. As long as you can really, somebody's gone off in sector 2, but as long as you can keep it hard on the throttle. And also...
It's Sergio Perez, and he's in the gravel, and he is beached, and it's a red flag. So Valtteri Bottas will have bought that lap, and you're right, Martin. Sergio Perez is out of qualifying, and he's gone off on the exit of Copse, and he's spun round, and as he rightly says, he is stuck. Out in Q1 here last season, out in Q1 here this season.
Well, he's not out yet, is he? But he's in terms of Q1, as it were, because depending if it sort of rains now or something, and they don't beat his 1:38.3. You see what I mean? But as long as the clock it doesn't stop in practice, but it does stop in qualifying. But as soon as you receive outside assistance, you are out of qualifying, and yeah, he will now anxiously be waiting. But if they all get out again, you're absolutely right. He'll start right at the back. He'll need binoculars to see the lights go out.
Well, see how quickly the excellent marshals can clear that Red Bull, and this is starting to becoming slightly critical for Red Bull here, because the gap is closing in the Constructors' Championship. They don't want Perez starting in the bottom 5. They quite like Perez to be starting, you know, somewhere between 10 and 15th, because they need him to score points.
So that was he'll have got into the double trouble I talked about, where you run slightly wide on your slick tyres, and then you're on really wet track because nobody's been out there. And you know, it's cyclical. Yeah, we need loads more gravel, loads more gravel. The reason the gravel disappeared over the years is because it takes cars out of the race, and in this case, out of qualifying. And that's why you don't always want a sea of gravel everywhere, which is why these strips of gravel they're putting in at the moment can be quite good. But that's really bad news for Sergio.
He's a man under pressure at the moment as well. Yeah,
I can't imagine he was Harry Flatters through there and really going for it, because I think if he was, it'd have hit the wall.
But look, he's on the soft tyre. So did he get on the curb, I wonder, where it's a little bit more damp?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he's not rocking up and flying through there at sort of approaching dry tyre speed, because
all I need is to be pushed back. There is a tarmac over there.
Can he do that? Can the marshals do that for him?
I don't think so. I think once he's received outside assistance, it's good night, thank you. But I can see what he's asking for, but they're making him get out. They want him to get out, and he is getting out, and then it will ignominiously be lifted on the tractor there, and then as they take it away, there'll no doubt be some photographers to get some shots of the underneath of the Red Bull to sell to the other teams.
Send off to Adrian Newey.
Yeah.
He might want to take him with him wherever he's going. Karun's at the Skypad. Hasn't got some still pictures, got some moving pictures for us.
I do, Crofty. Let's have a look. So let's go on board here with Sergio Perez. If I slow it down into Copse, he turns in. Look, that's that snap of oversteer. But he's actually then sort of gathered it together and got onto the runoff area. Now, obviously, the cars have been running on the track, which is much drier than the runoff area. He's on the slick tires. And when he gets onto the runoff area, that's where he loses it and ends up in the gravel. We've seen other drivers in the past go wide into there. And what ends up happening is they just sort of get themselves on a trajectory back around the curb and rejoin the track somewhere there. That's a vague drawing, but you know what I mean. But unfortunately for him, because of the outside being so wet, he just lost control and ended up in the gravel. Now, Martin, you were talking about he might get lucky with rain. I can tell you, just behind the Skypad here, there's an enormous cloud that's just drifted in over the circuit. It's come across from the sort of Luffield end of the track, and it's now coming on the paddock. So if this drags on a bit longer, that might dump a bit of rain and save Sergio Perez. Whether he gets into Q2 and back on track, that's a different matter.
Thanks ever so much, Karun. Yeah, we can see that big dark cloud that's making its way across and onto the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight, but it is still dry here at Silverstone. The rain's not coming down as yet, but for Sergio Perez, Q1 exits this season in Monaco and Canada, and that could be a third if it doesn't rain and the cars get back onto the track soon. No sign of a restart as yet, but that is poor for Sergio Perez. Not what he wanted here. at all. Let's have a listen to his team radio. You can understand why he asked the question of his race engineer Hugh Bird. This is Daniel Ricciardo coming up to the scene.
Following him through the same zone, but keeping it pointing in the right direction.
And then the red flag notifies the drivers, and we are going to get a restart soon. Well, I would imagine we're going to get a restart soon, because looking out the commentary box window, yeah, there you go. They're queuing up at the end of the pit lane, and the key here, Martin, is if you can get a lap in, if it is going to rain in the next 7.5 minutes of qualifying action, you want to get a lap in pretty quick.
The track is still red, Oscar, but people are queuing because there is a risk of rain towards the end of the session. So I've put you in the queue. I don't have a restart time yet.
And that's the weather radar showing the rain coming in. And there's a lot of it. That's just going to clip the circuit. And they reckon that it might come in a few moments. We are going to get going in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Track is now clear. And the two Aston Martins trying to get into that queue as well. And I would imagine, Ted, they're all on that soft compound tyre, and they can't wait to get going.
I think you can probably see the rain-bearing cloud from your commentary box. If you look out and then down towards the first corner, it's huge, isn't it, Crofty? So I can understand why they want to get down there. And the people who are challenged in terms of getting out of this Q1 session have all had to take another new set of soft tyres. Okay, if the rain comes, that might not be an issue. Oh, it's rain. It is. It's raining.
Is it raining?
It's raining. I can see spots of rain on the pit apron, the light-coloured concrete pit apron here. Yeah, where Simon and everybody were doing their heart rate challenge.
So who's not in the queue, Ted? Because it might be that those in the queue have now put themselves at a disadvantage because they can't get going for a minute and a half.
Lando, the risk of rain is coming earlier. Possible it will affect the track in 5 minutes' time, so the early laps might be important.
But I think they'll get away with it, Crofty. It's still dry for the track will still be dry enough, just about for now. They'll all be piling out in a second.
Bad news for Lance Stroll, who's been noted for leaving the pit exit on a red light. So when Sergio Perez went into the gravel and the red flag was shown, pit should be then closed. Did he try and go out without realizing it, that there was a red light on at the end of the pit lane?
Sounds very much like it, depending on the exact timing of that, as to whether he's got any mitigation. But you want to be out there, you want to be in that queue and get on with it and try and get a lap in. Otherwise, you're going to see some big surprises. At the moment, the big surprises down there are, well, you'd have to say Ricciardo, really. You wouldn't expect him to be down in 19th at the moment without a decent time on the board. And Hülkenberg with no time set whatsoever. He was hanging around, wasn't he, waiting for the track to dry, and now might get caught out. But it's obviously pretty treacherous out there. And look, the ponchos are going on, the umbrellas are going up, and we have a problem here for the drivers in terms of tippy-toeing around. Can they give it a go? They've got to be careful not to smash the car up. DRS has been disabled as well, which is a powerful tool in qualifying, but it's the same for everybody.
So we got a green light, now we can get going. And this is a race not just against time in terms of the time you need to set to get out of the bottom 5 or stay out of that bottom 5. It is a race against time before the rain cloud deposits a load more wet stuff on the track, and those dry tyres that you're on become completely useless. Can you get a lap in before it gets soggy?
Yeah, and all those sitting in the pit lane will be frustrated if they can barely get started on the lap. Zach, what are you seeing down there on the pit wall? Zach Brown.
I think we got to hurry up because it definitely looks like rain is coming. So I think everyone's going to try and set their times as quickly as possible.
How many people have you got out and about, Zach, trying to predict when the rain's going to hit the track? Because you don't just look at the weather radar, do you?
No, I'm trusting something more than what I'm seeing in front of me. No, we have people around, but so will all the other teams, and I think everyone's in the same view. Rain is coming.
Yeah, this is one of the more nervy qualifying sessions of the season, this one.
Anytime a little bit of luck comes into play, it's definitely a nail biter. It could work for you, it could work against you, but we'll see how we get on here shortly. Glad we got some lap times in already.
Absolutely. Thanks ever so much, Zach. Yeah, McLaren in a better position than some, with Piastri third fastest and Norris fifth fastest currently. Valtteri Bottas was on a hot lap on the soft compound tyre when the red flag came. He's going to have to try again here, but he is the first one that is going to go and set a lap, so he should get the best of the conditions if the rain is coming. And the wind has picked up, as Daniel Ricciardo is being told, as Valtteri Bottas barrel rolls into Abbey and starts another flying lap.
Yeah, he got so much downforce through there, the car will stick, and then the downforce bleeds off very quickly through these slow corners. You rely a little bit more on mechanical grip then, but the car looks pretty much glued to the racetrack. Through this phase of the lap, it was Copse Corner where they were really struggling. Stay to the right-hand side. It's a left-hander coming up of Brooklands, taking in 90 miles an hour minimum speed through that corner. And then the long right of Luffield. Let it breathe in the middle and try and get the car straight, especially in conditions like this. Sweeping through it absolutely flat out. The car just ignores a curve like the old Woodcote. And Copse Corner, this is where we saw Perez running wide. No problems at all there for Valtteri Bottas. And now the Yeehaw section, the left and the right, Maggots, Beckett. And it's a little bit slower every part of this. And finally there is your slowest point. Then you can let the car go. You will not be opening the DRS down the straight. It's disabled in slippery conditions at the moment. And a really wide turn in to Stowe, late apex, kiss the inside late in the corner, then let the car have its head and run wide over the what is a blind crest sitting in a racing car, believe it or not, and then neat and tidy through here. It'll be slippery in the second part of this, but Bottas then corrects that slide into the pit straight, downforce building again, and he's into the 32s, not too shabby.
That is the difference, intermediates and then a drying track on the slicks. Nearly 5 seconds between Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. Zhou Guanyu puts in his lap just behind his teammate by half a second. Kevin Magnussen now goes second fastest for Haas. 1:32.4, that's not a bad lap time at all for Valtteri Bottas, but half a second quicker than him is Nico Hülkenberg. And if the rain doesn't come, we now will start to get laps go faster and faster, because the dry line is going to get drier as we go around. Stroll goes 10th fastest, Alonso second fastest behind Hülkenberg. Piastri to cross the line next, goes quickest overall. Martin.
Weirdly, a pit lane incident involving both Aston Martins noted.
Well, they were waiting to get into the queue. Did they find a gap to get into the queue that was too small? And Max Verstappen going off, but carrying on, running off into the gravel. But that is not the smooth ride that Verstappen wanted. His teammate, Perez, out of qualifying after going off at Copse. Verstappen going off at Copse as well, as Hamilton goes fourth fastest.
We need this lap, we need this lap.
They do need this lap, because he's in the bottom 5. Carlos Sainz, and we're riding on board with him right now. That's Zhou Guanyu on a slow lap that he's just passed, and now belting down the hanger straight towards Stowe as George Russell goes 10th fastest. And in the bottom 5, Ricciardo, Sargent, Gasly, Tsunoda, and this man Sainz.
Russell's had a time deleted as well, is 36.993. That time's going for George Russell. He needs another lap as well now.
Ricciardo goes 9th fastest. Verstappen, who we saw just go off, is only 12th fastest currently. Make that 13th as Sainz goes 9th fastest, and I think the rain is starting to fall. I'm looking out the commentary box window. It's getting heavy here.
It is. They're doing 36s now. Some of them, that's how wet it's getting out there. And where's Russell dropped down to? Down to 13th at the moment.
But below him, Verstappen, very much at risk, because there are personal best times coming on the board. This is where Verstappen went off at Copse.
Yeah, he had exactly the same situation, didn't he, as Perez, but kept it together.
Rain.
Tsunoda crosses the line, can't improve. 18th fastest, that is good news for Max Verstappen, who is 15th at the moment. Stroll goes ahead of him.
So Russell's 37.2, which is his second fastest time. and everybody's struggling into Kopp's corner now. Is that going to make the barriers? No, he's wrestled it onto a little bit of a service road there, and away he goes. So Russell's second fastest time still just keeps him in play.
So George Russell, 13th fastest, puts him safe, goes 7th fastest overall. Daniel Ricciardo is currently 13th fastest, improved in the middle sector. Verstappen has set his best middle sector so far. The rain is still falling. It's less heavy on the main straight than it was about 2 minutes ago. Sainz is very much improving. Ricciardo goes 11th fastest. Verstappen goes 3rd fastest, gets himself out of trouble, hooks up a very impressive lap in these conditions, and Sainz goes quicker, 2nd fastest for him.
It must have stopped raining out there, because now they're suddenly finding some grip and temperature again. This will just keep turning around as they go over the line.
Leclerc goes 9th fastest, Russell below him. Stroll at risk round the final corner, not at risk anymore, 2nd fastest. That pushes Daniel Ricciardo into the outskirts of the drop zone, could be in the drop zone and is. Albon goes 2nd fastest, and Daniel Ricciardo drops into the bottom 5.
I hope they've kept some battery for one final push lap, because this is just going to keep changing and changing and changing like a fruit machine as they cross the line.
Logan Sargent might have hit the jackpot then. He's gone 6th fastest. Hamilton fastest in the middle sector of all. Alonso into the top 3. And that lap by Max Verstappen, he's now 9th fastest as Hamilton goes quickest.
Norris is in the pit though. Norris has pitted. He's not out there at the moment.
Checkered flag falling, these laps will count. Russell into the top 2. Tsunoda's gone quickest overall in the 1st sector. His teammate, Daniel Ricciardo's gone personal best for the 1st and 2nd sector. Verstappen's improving still through the middle part. Sainz is on a decent lap for him. Coming round the final corner, here's Daniel Ricciardo, 6th quickest overall. Leclerc might be at risk a little bit. This lap of his has got to count. Verstappen goes 8th fastest, Sainz into the top 3. And where is Charles Leclerc? Coming through the Vale chicane. Currently, only 14th quickest. Man, of course, who was on pole here, he was on 3rd on the grid here a couple of years ago, goes 3rd now, does Charles Leclerc. Tsunoda carrying on doing well. That's a super lap by Zhou Guanyu. Pushes Kevin Magnussen down now into the bottom 5. And Tsunoda towards the Vale chicane. This could be good news for him and bad news for Valtteri Bottas. 2-time pole sitter Bottas. He might get knocked out in Q1. He does get knocked out in Q1. Tsunoda goes 6th fastest.
Norris can now breathe, down to 13th, but I can't see anybody else out there now able to finish a lap. There isn't. Phew.
Wow. What first part of qualifying. And both Alpines out in the first part of qualifying. Pierre Gasly, we knew, would start at the back of the grid and will do so. But his teammate, Esteban Ocon, has not reached Q3 in any of the 4 British Grand Prix here. Well, he's not reaching Q3 this year either, because he's out in the first part of qualifying. Magnussen and Bottas will join them. Kevin Magnussen been knocked out in Q1 of the last 6 times he's driven at Silverstone. But Sergio Perez, by going off and getting stuck in the gravel, is the big shock out in the first part of qualifying. And the dark cloud has moved over, and we might get a dry second part, but who knows? It's Silverstone. And hopefully you've caught your breath after that first part of qualifying.
But our system said that both you and Fernando took that flag. Took the check flag. Okay, I don't know. So we're trying to find out, all right?
Esteban Ocon not happy because he thinks that the only push lap he had was when it was wet. That is the underside of Max Verstappen's Red Bull. Went off into the gravel. There is clear damage at the front there with those aerodynamic channels under the car, which will cost him a little bit, I think. And the Red Bull didn't look particularly special in that first part of qualifying. Zak Brown, though, you had Lando Norris in the pits towards the end when everyone was improving, but your mathematicians got their sums right, Zach. He's through.
Yeah, no, we knew we were safe there, so no reason to continue to push, but a bit of a nail biter there for some, for sure.
Yeah, you tell me that now, Zach, but I'm sure the nails were being chewed. But for now, what's the weather forecast? What's the radar showing you for Q2?
It looks like we might have a little more rain, and then it should clear up. So I think strategy will probably be get out there and put a time down. But actually, I've just heard over strategy as we speak, no more rain expected. So let's see.
Good. You said you got people out there. I mean, are they in Wellington boots in the middle of a Northamptonshire field? Zach, do you have helicopters? What do you have out there to upwind to let you know what's going on?
You definitely have some stuff in the air, and then of course all the Brits here know exactly what the weather looks like, so we're counting on them. But no, we've got some people in the air, and then some pretty good radar.
I've got a friend of mine's got a herd of cows. He'll travel for you. That's not a problem. I'll give you his number after the session. Thanks ever so much, Zach. We'll move on. Stewards are going to look at Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll after the session for a pit lane incident. We think that's when they were trying to get into the queue that was forming after the red flag. Let's just take a quick look at this, Martin. This is Lance Stroll when he came in for a change of tyre. See, the pit exit light is green. He set off, and it's red. Did he have enough time to stop?
Just about, but I don't know if he'd have been looking, to be honest. Our friend Johnny Herbert there briefly.
With his granddaughter, I think, there.
You know, he might well have been focusing inside the car. Aston Martin are at the very far end of the pit lane. This is the one circuit of the year because it's part of the pit lane subterranean, as you can see, where they don't line up necessarily in championship order from last season, as team championship order, that is. So it's quite interesting how the pit lane is set out here. As you can see how much lower it is at the far end of it. And yeah, the team will say he was just busy, you know, doing whatever he had to do inside the car. The FIA will say a red light is a red light. We'll see who wins.
We've had a stopwatch on it, 1.2 seconds between light going on and Lance crossing the pit exit line. But that'll be investigated after the session. As Will Joseph, race engineer at McLaren for Lando Norris. As I mentioned earlier, McLaren getting both cars into Q3 in every race so far this season. We have Ferrari failing to reach Q3 in Canada. It was only the only time since Belgium 2021 that neither Ferrari got into Q3. Neither Aston Martin's got into Q3 at the last two races in a row. And Zhou Guanyu and Logan Sargent both in Q2. Ted Kravitz, to you.
And a very good effort from both of them, and Alex Albon. Of course, we've been used to seeing him get out of Q1 fairly frequently, but not quite so much Logan Sargent. And he was on the radio giving it the whoops and the woos, Crofty, saying that was a great lap, and he's very happy with that. Talk about a drive to survive for Logan Sargent after his boss yesterday saying, and now it's absolutely possible he could be replaced mid-season. By who, I don't know, but James Vowles saying that to us on Sky F1. So, yeah, a timely achievement to get into Q2. So the weather is now, I haven't got somebody upwind in a field like Zak Brown has. I've just got a radar which says the next patch of rain is overhead, south of Birmingham, overhead Worcester, and it's coming our way.
We'll be all right. It'll arrive just in time for the football, don't worry.
So it's been announced it's normal grip conditions, and DRS is then enabled, the rear wing's enabled, because their theory is, look, why if the track's slippery and a little bit challenging and dangerous, why would we let you go even faster down the straight? So there's the sort of logic there. But now it's considered there is sufficient grip and visibility.
So here's Alex Albon, who hasn't been out-qualified by his teammate in the Grand Prix qualifying session this season, but who he had Logan Sargent alongside him in Q2 at Silverstone last year. Valtteri Bottas, by the way, has been out-qualified by Zhou Guanyu for the first time this season, and both Sargent and Zhou into Q2 for only the second time in 2024. 28.2 for the first sector for Albon, 28.3 for Zhou, and a 28.1 for Stroll and for Alonso. Early stages of this second part of qualifying. That damage to the Red Bull for Max Verstappen didn't look much, but it could be. That's significant, especially, Martin, given how close pole has been in 2 of the last 3 races.
I couldn't actually see it, to be honest. I couldn't see the damage. You could see where they put the helicopter tape on the gaps on the wishbone and that sort of thing. But you saw something, didn't you? It certainly won't help. But I didn't see anybody trying to fix it either. But nonetheless, it did bounce through the gravel a long way. And it won't be at all surprising if it's made it a bit scruffy underneath the Red Bull. But it's interesting that the Red Bull looked as flighty into Copse Corner as any car out there, didn't it?
Yeah.
Suggesting they're pretty skinny on downforce.
Okay, so a 28.1 for the first sector is the best time so far. Just outside that with a 28.2 for Max Verstappen. Stroll goes second behind Alex Albon, make that third as his teammate crosses the line to set a 1:27.6. And we carry on with Max Verstappen through Copse. Big test. How flat can he take it?
He didn't have to shift down, but it was a fairly big old lift of the throttle through there, and I'm not that surprised. That's flat out. And then this is the right-hander, I said, it's the slowest part. And then quite a lot of understeer there. The car was trying to make its way towards the curb and the grass, diagonal of the straight, but the shortest route. Look at that magnificent Stowe corner ahead of you. A little bit damp here and there. Turn it from the far left, apex late, and then ride the curb through the exit. Bring it to the right-hand side. Hit the brakes on the top of the crest. You must touch that curb. Don't let the car get out of shape through the first part of Club Corner. Then you can just floor it. Downforce builds, the car squashes into the ground. But look at that, only 4th for Max Verstappen.
And he lost 2/10 to Oscar Piastri in the middle sector. Piastri did have the fastest time until Carlos Sainz crossed the line in his Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton also lost time during the middle part of the lap, and he can only cross the line 8th fastest overall. Not the opening lap in this qualifying 2 session that he would have wanted. Meanwhile, George Russell is another who hasn't necessarily found the time he wanted on this lap. And I wonder, as he crosses the line in 13th, is this Mercedes, as Norris goes quickest overall, thinking, right, we can do this with 2 flying laps. We'll put enough fuel in the car to do 2 flying laps and then see how we are after that. This will be a cool-down lap for Hamilton and for Russell before they go again in a moment.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they're not all fueled for more than 1 hot lap. But there we go then, through Woodcote again with Lewis Hamilton. He's not done a personal best first sector, just getting to about 190 miles an hour, turning into Copse. Less of a lift than we saw Verstappen having to take there through caution. Normally that would be flat out on a hot, dry qualifying day. And what's Lewis doing then in terms of his middle sector? That'll come up soon, and it is a personal best in the middle sector.
I'm told used tyres for Lewis Hamilton currently. Max Verstappen was on new tyres for his run. Charles Leclerc, I'm sure if it's new or used, says these tyres don't feel too good. Charles Leclerc at the moment only 11th fastest, and I think he's on used tyres as well. Yes, he is. George Russell making his way as his teammate Lewis Hamilton, with a bit more temperature in those tyres, goes 3rd fastest. He found that temperature and got the grip he wanted in the final sector, set the best final sector that we've seen so far. He's a 10th off Lando Norris. Here's George Russell, slowest on the board currently, crosses the line and stays on the fringes of elimination there. Only 9th fastest for George Russell. Alex Albon goes into the top 4 in his Williams. Only a 10th and a bit off the pace. It's all looking very close at the top as Logan Sargent puts his Williams into the top 9.
This is properly upside down, isn't it? As they've got different levels of confidence and belief. The trouble is, if you're overconfident, you're going straight to the scene of the accident in a couple of these corners.
Carlos Sainz a long way ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc as Stroll goes 5th fastest. He out-qualified him in Austria for the first time in 7 races, and Leclerc just saying, I've got no front grip at the moment. Fernando Alonso's found a bit of grip out there for Aston Martin, and he goes quickest by 1/10.5 from Lando Norris on this one. 4,367th day since his last pole position, Germany in 2012, and into the Vale chicane we go with Charles Leclerc. Did that look like he had enough grip there?
Yeah, he was fair bouncing nicely through there, wasn't he? But once again, the Ferrari not showing incredible pace, is it? And Leclerc's been on a bit of a difficult run lately. But, you know, every lap is now an adventure.
7 minutes to go then. Lewis Hamilton returns to the pits. Max Verstappen carries on for his 2nd flying lap and still behind others. This time Fernando Alonso by a few hundredths of a second, and Carlos Sainz too. So the Red Bull not exactly setting the pace out there. Bit twitchy from Piastri as he starts his latest flying lap. Oscar Piastri was 3rd on the grid on his Silverstone debut last year, still searching for his first pole position in a Formula 1 Grand Prix, but surely will come soon given his team's upturn in form and his outstanding talent.
The only driver to have completed every racing lap so far this season is Oscar Piastri. I mean, if he hadn't have lost that time in qualifying last weekend in Austria, he had a very, very good chance of winning that race, didn't he? If he'd have started from perhaps where he thought he would be in qualifying. But you kind of sense a win is just around the corner for this young man.
Yep, got one in a sprint last year.
Absolutely.
Yep, still waiting for his first in the Grand Prix, the big race on the Sunday. Into Copse we go with Oscar Piastri. Wonderful watching a Formula 1 car through there, and it carries on too into Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. We are barely touching the brakes, shifting down the gears a couple, still maintaining some obscene speeds of between 160, 165 miles an hour. And look at the speed he's carrying here.
Yeah, he managed to sneak a bit of a slipstream there from the Ferrari. Stoke corner, nice and wide through the exit. As I say, when you're sitting on the ground, that little crest Vale, it makes the track out of view momentarily. It's a really weird thing compared to how it looks when you're walking or from a high camera angle. And that is fast enough for P1 by a massive 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, they like that, do the fans in Papaya. Piastri from Sainz, current McLaren driver, from former McLaren driver, from former McLaren driver, and Fernando Alonso, who's 3rd fastest, and Max Verstappen, who had to wait until lap 4 of his stint to record his best time. Lewis Hamilton, who's just gone out, I think, on a new set of soft compound tyres. He did 8 laps on his previous stint before setting his best time to give him 6th fastest. And it was new tyres for Verstappen, old tyres for Lewis Hamilton. Seems to be doing all right in the low-speed corners compared to George Russell. That's a 4/10. There's a big chunk of the low-speed corners there.
It was odd. It's a little bit odd, isn't it? Because Mercedes were the team to beat this morning. They were. It was wetter, of course, and on intermediate tyres. But they've looked pretty handy, wet or dry. So I would fully expect them both to pump in the top 10 lap here.
It's that time in qualifying, Martin, when we say, here comes Nico Hülkenberg, and he's just set the fastest time in the 1st sector. So the qualifying Supremo, 5 Q3 appearances so far this season for the Haas team. He's now just, what, 5 points off the top 10, isn't he, Hülkenberg, after Austria, pushing on hard.
Yeah, and so 135 miles an hour was his minimum speed through Beckett's. Extraordinary, and Red Bull are reporting damage, significant damage to the floor. So what you spotted was absolutely right, Crofty, to the floor of Max Verstappen from that little trip through the very long gravel section at Copse.
Yeah, how costly will that be by the time qualifying finishes? Nico Hülkenberg goes fastest overall by nearly 1/10 of a second from Oscar Piastri. You can see how the track is drying. So Hülkenberg pushing hard, getting the grip that he wanted and getting the time that he wanted too. But behind him, others will be challenging. That top spot is not going to be safe for long.
92nd lap, of course, that means your out lap is longer as well. So you need to get out and get on much earlier than, say, in Austria last weekend.
George Russell's picking up time on his previous best and enjoying the conditions maybe a little bit more. Just through the first sector, couple of tenths up on Hamilton, 10th up on Norris. Hamilton, meanwhile, has just blitzed the middle sector with the best time we've seen so far. George Russell goes through that middle sector, just a 10th behind. Lando Norris now fastest in the middle sector. Russell goes quickest by 8/100ths of a second from Nico Hülkenberg. Next across the line, Zhou Guanyu stays in the bottom 5. He's got time for one more lap to put that right. Lewis Hamilton next across the line by 4/1000ths of a second, slots in behind his teammate George Russell, and here comes Lando Norris to go quickest overall.
Verstappen has now left the pits, so he's got enough time to get round and start one final hot lap in this Q2. He's down in 9th at the moment. Top 10 go through, of course.
Damage to his car, and Red Bull asking him to just do the one lap to try and safely make his way through into Q3. That's not going to be the easiest challenge he's had so far, but as it was at the end of practice 3, 3 Brits in the top 3. This is becoming quite the day for the home fans. And yes, I know not every fan of the British Grand Prix supports a British driver, but I would say the fair amount of them do.
They appear to. Yeah.
It's, I think in the race for photos here, Lewis, George and Lando sharing the requests, the most requests for selfies. I think slotting in at 4 yourself, Martin Brundle. You were spotted yesterday, trackside, posing for selfies.
I was.
And you were posing for each and every one of them.
Well, you don't turn anybody down, do you, if you've got time to stop and say hello. And we like to meet the fans. We love to count them, whether it's on TV, in the grandstands, buying caps, whatever. So we should love to meet them as well. And it's always good too.
Alex Albon goes 5th fastest on his latest run. We're on board with Charles Leclerc, who's up to the first sector, but not by as much as I think he would have wanted. His teammate Carlos Sainz also not finding exactly the pace I think he would have wanted on a drying track. If the evolution is a second here, Ferrari a little bit behind the pace in terms of what they would have wanted through the first part. Fighting that Ferrari through Cobs.
They've still got some porpoising, hasn't it? They've gone back to the old aero setup to get rid of some of that, but that camera really, luckily your eye dials some of that movement out, but looking at the camera there, you think, how can he see where he's going even? But so the Ferrari, when they're running it low and fast, they are getting some vertical movement going on.
Checkered flag has fallen, which means that Nico Hülkenberg has taken that flag, and his time of a 1:26.8 is the best he's going to do. Piastri goes ahead of Hülkenberg, pushes him to 5th, and Piastri is about a 10th.5 off his teammate Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc only 7th fastest as he crosses the line with his final run in Q2, and his teammate Carlos Sainz goes 5th fastest, pushes Leclerc down to 8th, and he might have a nervy wait here with others below him on a flying lap. Tsunoda goes 10th fastest. Look at Verstappen in that bottom 5, and he's not exactly setting the pace that he would want here. Alonso goes 2nd fastest, pushes Leclerc down into 9th here. Watching Lance Stroll out on the track could be a challenge at the Charles Leclerc, and maybe Daniel Ricciardo too, but here comes Verstappen to try and get into that top 10. He does, finds the pace in the final sector, goes 6th fastest. That'll be okay to get him through into Q3. George Russell will be next to go around the final corner, 2nd fastest. That's not going to worry Charles Leclerc. Lance Stroll's time might though. Here comes Stroll, and Charles Leclerc is out of qualifying. The Aston Martin goes through at the expense of the Ferrari. Stroll into the top 10. Leclerc is out in Q2.
And Ricciardo then coming through, so that's a shocker. But Leclerc's really been struggling, hasn't he, for ultimate pace here. What a top 10 shootout this is going to be. Do not go away. But Hülkenberg...
We're out, right? Yes, we're out.
For the 2nd time in Q2, in the last 4 races, happened in Montreal, Charles Leclerc is out. Dramatic end to qualifying 2. Norris, Russell, Alonso, Piastri and Hamilton, the top 5. Verstappen squeezed through in 6th, and we have lost Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda, Logan Sargent and Charles Leclerc. Welcome back to Silverstone. This was in the build-up to the final runs in Q2.
Yeah, Hamilton's were pretty aggressively towards me. Nice to avoid anything. Yeah, obstructions.
Pick the bones out of that one, Martin.
I actually don't think it's a problem in terms of they were all jockeying for position there. Lewis probably looking in both mirrors trying to, but I don't see an issue there.
And then Lewis Hamilton overtakes Lando Norris. There he goes. Zach Brown's on the pit wall. Zach, Lando radioing there. That's probably a message for Will Joseph and race control, I'd have thought.
Yeah, just pointing out some little activity on the track, but I agree with Martin. I don't think it'll come to anything.
So, in which case, let's move on to Q3. What is going to be the outcome here? You've got pace, Zach Brown, and maybe a home pole is on today.
I like our chances. We've got two fast race cars. The Mercedes seem to be a match for us. I don't know the degree of Max's damage and whether they can get it fixed out in time. But and then Alonso put in a good lap time. But feels to me like this is going to come down to Mercedes or McLaren.
Have you split strategy at all on your two cars for aero level, downforce level, Zach?
No, the cars are pretty close. The drivers do have a little bit difference in the car based on their preference, but it's not a split strategy per se, just driver preference.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Zach. While we talk to you down at Red Bull, they're looking underneath Max Verstappen's car. He went off into the gravel at Copse. He has got damage. The team know he's got damage, and they're trying their best to put a quick fix in. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, thanks, Crofty. Let's just remind everybody, in case you didn't see, this is where Verstappen had the mistake up at Copse corner, had a snap of oversteer, but unlike Perez, didn't spin, went straight across the gravel, and that is what has done the damage. Now, you spotted it earlier on, and I'll just show it here on this frame. You can see this bit of the floor there, that part has been damaged along the front, and you can see, I'm sure we can't get really a look at the other side, but this is the bit that the cameras have picked up, and I suspect there's damage further down as well, but you can quite clearly see the damage on the floor, and if I play it long, you can see a feverish amount of activity inside that Red Bull pit garage, all around there, and as you said, that's carried on as well into this final part of qualifying.
And they're working more to the rear of the floor as well now, so I suspect a strake has gone, one of the controlling strakes, towards the Venturi part of the floor is where it looked to me as if they were working more feverishly just now.
Right. Meanwhile, over at McLaren, it is all calm in the Lando Norris side of the garage, but on the pit wall, GP, Giampiero Lambiase, Max Verstappen's race engineer, communicating with his driver to bring him up to date with the situation. Hugh Bird is the man closest to us. That's Sergio Perez, race engineer, and I'm not quite sure what he looks at in this qualifying, because sadly for him and his driver, Sergio Perez, out in the first part of qualifying, and we have got 5 seconds now to go until the start of Q3, and bring this on, Martin Brundle. I think this is going to be an absolute barnstormer.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Verstappen is carrying a deficit there in downforce, but he was still only 2/10 away from fastest in that last session. Probably thick end of a quarter of a second, actually. So it can't be that bad underneath, but it's obviously there is some damage under there. They'll keep trying to improve. They can change those parts for the race tomorrow, providing they replace them with identical parts in both dimensions and weight, which I'm sure they can. But yeah, it is very much as Zach was pointing out, it's McLaren versus Mercedes. See what Verstappen can do, and with Aston Martin as the outliers really, yeah. and sort of really turning up with some great laps.
Yep, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll both into Q3, and that's the first time since we were here in the COVID year in 2020 that Lance Stroll has made it into the top 10. Fernando Alonso has been in Q3 for the last 3 years here and seeks the first pole since Germany 2012. Meanwhile, Alex Albon, for the second year in a row, is also in Q3 here at Silverstone, and he's leading them onto the track. Ted, down to you.
He is, Crofty, and he's left the pits with a used set of soft tyres. So they finished the job that they can do for the moment on Max Verstappen's car and sent him out on a brand new set of soft tyres. So They've made up and made good as much as they can. Let's see what he can do. As for Charles Leclerc, it seemed to be in the sort of longest middle sector where he lost the most time. Carlos Sainz was quicker, obviously. Let's see if he can do better than P8. But Ferrari knew as soon as it got a little bit colder, and they haven't been exactly the quickest things around here so far this weekend, they were going to struggle. You can almost hear that in Leclerc's voice on the radio, couldn't you, Crofty? It's like he knew he hadn't been able to do enough.
We'll keep an eye on Verstappen's tyres. You're right, there are new ones he's gone out on now, as we can see there with the Mercedes 2. But Verstappen used 3 sets of new tyres, we reckon, in Q2 of the new soft tyre. So he's been chewing through his allocation.
And he only had 6 new soft compound tyres going into today, although he wouldn't have used any in Q3, of course, in FP3, of course, because it was wet. Right, Carlos Sainz, by the way, if you believe in omens, the only time that he's out-qualified at a teammate at Silverstone in the last 8 visits is when he won from pole here in 2022. He's already out-qualified Charles Leclerc today. Maybe that's a good omen for him. Maybe Mercedes, Hamilton, after an 11th front row start here at Silverstone and trying to out-qualify George Russell for the 3rd time this season, or Russell himself, who's never qualified in the top 5 here, has the best chance I think he's ever had to do that. And we can still remember that amazing qualifying he put in a Williams to get to the Q3 on a Friday evening here in 2021.
Absolutely. Right, show us what you got in terms of speed and bravery now. This is it. Silverstone, the theatre of speed. Super high-speed corners, not an awful lot of braking around here, and you see when we're on board with them through Beckett's minimum speed 135 miles an hour. Cops, they turn in at 190 odd miles an hour, and it's just relentless pace, and that's why the drivers love it. You can just see the roll in the car there as he changed direction, all the kinematics, the suspension working, and the sidewall of the tyres just yielding a little bit. And at very high pressures there, you have to have 28.5 psi front, 25.5 psi rear temperature, and that's very high for a Formula 1 car, just to help the integrity, the strength, the safety of the tyres under these loads.
Less than 1/10 of a second separating Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Hamilton and Sainz through the first sector. And it's Carlos Sainz who's got a few hundredths of a second in hand in the first part of the lap. Piastri in the middle part of the lap puts in a 34.7, quicker than anyone we've seen so far, and quicker than Max Verstappen, but only by a few hundredths of a second. It's absolute neck and neck with these thoroughbreds as Lando Norris pulls ahead in the middle sector. Verstappen's time is a 1:26.3. That's what they're all chasing. Next around the final corner is Oscar Piastri, who goes faster than Max Verstappen. There's 1/10 of a second in it. He goes on to provisional pole. Alonso goes 3rd fastest. Here's Lando Norris fighting his car around the final corner. Norris goes on to provisional pole by a few tenths of a second.
Hamilton fastest of anybody in the first sector on this current lap. He's flying along too. Sainz pops into 4th place now in the sole surviving Ferrari. We'll keep an eye on Hamilton. Who else is out there going fast?
George Russell, same pretty much first sector time as Stroll goes ahead of Alonso and Albon. And Hamilton's just lost a little bit in the middle sector compared to the best time. Russell's lost a little bit, but not as much. It's properly neck and neck here.
Yeah, it's kiss and fly through these last 2 curbs, and then apply the throttle, then floor the throttle. The line comes up quickly, and 2nd place for Hamilton.
Which would be that 11th front row start at Silverstone if he can hang on to that 2nd place. George Russell goes quickest though, by 6/1000th of a second. George Russell, who was on pole in Canada, now is on provisional pole in his home race.
3 Brits in the top 3, just 6/1000ths of a second between Russell and Norris, and Hamilton looking on as well. Verstappen, we know, is slightly limping with underfloor damage, but look at that. It is very much Mercedes versus McLaren up front. Can Verstappen spoil their day?
As we said at the start, not since 1968 have we had 3 British drivers 1, 2, 3 on the grid. It was South Africa that day. Jim Clark, Graham Hill and Sir Jackie Stewart in what was Jim Clark's final Formula One race. And we have 3 British drivers provisionally top 3 on the grid at the moment, separated by less than 0.2 of a second. Now this is Verstappen's flying lap.
I think he goes wide through the exit of Beckett's, and I saw him kick some spray up, but that's kind of okay out there. But it was a big plume of spray came up. He would have had to hesitate though before he could get on the throttle to let it stop sliding. So there's more time in Verstappen's pocket. What about Russell, Norris, Hamilton and Piastri?
And I should mention, because he deserves it, Nico Hülkenberg, as he comes into the pits, 6th fastest currently for Nico Hülkenberg in exactly half of the races in 2024. He has made Q3, and that is a very handy time to be better than the Ferrari of Sainz.
I know, that's embarrassing for Ferrari, especially if they've got the same power unit and they've probably got 1,000 less people working in the team.
Ferrari have gone back to the old spec of their car because the upgrades that they put on yesterday they felt just didn't work. Well, the old spec's got one of them into Q3, but hasn't quite got the pace. Alex Albon slowest of all, Alonso and Stroll 9th and 8th. And so far, the inter-team battle a lot closer at Aston Martin than it was last year. If Stroll keeps that, it'll be 7-5 to Alonso by the time we go into the race tomorrow. There, well, Lando Norris has the advantage where you saw the orange, George Russell through the green, but 6/1000ths of a second, nothing in it at all.
You'd think that'd be easy, wouldn't you, over that number of corners at that speed? Brake a bit less, get off the brake pedal a bit earlier, brake a metre or 2 later. That's the sort of tolerances you're looking at now. Try and carry 1 or 2 miles per hour, 2 or 3 kilometres per hour more through the apex, and the time will come to you a little bit. If you just throw caution to the wind and banzai it very rarely will pay you back unless you can somehow hang on to it.
It's phenomenal though, isn't it? The amount of work, money, detail, creativity that go into the interpretation of the regulations to build these Formula One cars. Then you add in the other variable, which is the driver, and the other variable today, which is the weather, and they're separated by 6 milliseconds.
I believe the only thing that's transferable between all these cars are the tyres, of course, and the FIA rain lights on the back. I think a standard spec. Yes, the ECUs that run the engine, but they've still got team-specific software in them. They are so bespoke, and that is a critical part of Formula One. It's what makes Formula One work over other sort of single-make championships, if you like. In the teams are obliged to, or largely, I should say, design and create their own cars.
Right. So all that creativity, all that inspiration and perspiration comes down to these moments here. The drivers staggering their entrance onto the track to build a nice little gap to the car in front so that they're not disturbed by any turbulence from them. That's why they wait, but they might want to be getting a bit of a move on here because there's still, what, 5 cars to come out here, and we're at 2 minutes.
And Alonso was desperately, or one of the Aston was just trying to get their nose in the queue, and the others wouldn't let them in. And like any good roundabout at rush hour in the morning, nobody wants to let anybody in, get in their way, because they might be 3 seconds longer getting there. But it's quite critical then, the running order. You do not want to really ideally be within 6 or 7 seconds of the car in front, if you can help it, if it's on a hot lap. But certainly you don't want to be within 5 seconds of it. It'll damage your downforce.
Well, they are all on the track. Fernando Alonso has come out right behind Carlos Sainz. He's just got ahead of Oscar Piastri. So Piastri is going to be the last driver over the line to start his flying lap. What a moment this could be, though, for George Russell, winner last time out in Austria, where he inherited the race lead with 8 laps to go, and where he would dearly love a pole position to follow that at his home race. And Toto Wolff has promised not to say anything on the team radio until it's all over, and then they can start the shouting. Will it be shouts of jubilation for Russell, Or will it be Lando Norris snatching pole out of his mate's hand? Or will it be Lewis Hamilton coming back to take pole at Silverstone once more? Or Oscar Piastri, who's right up there? This is the pole sitter from last year, Max Verstappen. He won from pole. Take it away, Martin, on his final flying lap.
Let's see if he's flat out through turn 1. He most certainly is, and the car looks supremely balanced. Turn 2 is always flat out. Brake in a straight line, get the downshift done, coax the car in, let it run a little bit higher. You take a late turn, and he had to correct that. He's already lost time through there. This is a flat-out kink onto the Wellington straight, but he would have had to hesitate before putting the power on in the first sector there. So Max has got a lot of work to do.
And to compound the misery for Max Verstappen, this track's getting quicker because both Sainz and Stroll have gone through the first sector at a 27.8, so the times are starting to get quicker and quicker, which might affect Verstappen even more. Hamilton a 27.9, just off the pace a bit in the first sector. Lando Norris with a 28.0.
Nobody's done a personal best first sector of those three on the screen at the moment, but down the field they have.
And in fact, the top 5 haven't done a personal best through that first sector. Albon takes the checker flag, 126.6. 8th fastest will be best for him. Verstappen's picked it up through the middle part of the lap, and he's only just off the pace. Stroll goes 8th ahead of Alex Albon, and that would be his best grid spot for Lance Stroll since 2020 in the 70th anniversary race. Hamilton is picking up time in the middle sector. Norris not picking up time on this lap at all. Here comes Verstappen round the final corner. Verstappen goes 4th fastest. Before that, Hulkenberg 6th fastest. That would be Haas and Hulkenberg's best start of the season so far. Here comes Lewis Hamilton though through the final corner. Is it good enough for pole? It is. Provisional pole for Lewis Hamilton by 3/100ths of a second, and the crowd are loving that. But George Russell through the middle sector had an advantage over his teammate, and he's back on pole again. George Russell snatches pole from Lewis Hamilton. Can Norris do anything about it? No, he is pitted. It's a Mercedes 1-2 on the grid at Silverstone. It's a British 1-2-3 for the first time ever at a British Grand Prix. The home boys have done the home fans an absolute treat on this Saturday afternoon.
Mercedes locked the front row out. They've had a day. Antonelli, their driver they really want to use in the future, won the F2 sprint race this morning as well. They've had a tremendous day. And Lando Norris obviously made a mistake or something on that lap.
Nice job. Zubaba. Pole position, mate.
Woohoo! Yeah, baby! Is that 1-2?
1-2.
Yes! Ah! Nice one, team! Come on! Woo! Race to win tomorrow.
4.
Wow, you can just hear the elation in George Russell's voice. For Max Verstappen, though, disappointment, only 4th on the grid. We were riding on board when we saw that he had to back out earlier in the lap. He went wide. Once again, there he's got damage to his car. He was struggling with that damage after going off at Cobbs. And it was a struggle that even Max Verstappen couldn't overcome.
Yeah, he had that wobble, didn't he, in turn 4, running wide through here. It almost seems to be his line. It kicks up a bit of spray because he's on uncharted territory. But definitely, you can see Verstappen really fighting the car here, there, and everywhere. But look at the Mercedes then. The only 2 cars into the 1-minute 25s, and it was enough. Lando Norris was on the radio apologising to the team, rather confirming he's made a small error somewhere and abandoned the lap.
Oh, what a race this is going to be tomorrow now. Russell and Hamilton locking out the front row for Mercedes. An 82nd front row lockout. It extends their all-time record in Formula One, and it's a 2nd pole of the season for George Russell, whose teammate is the first on the scene. To congratulate him, Russell, the first British driver other than Lewis Hamilton to be on pole at Silverstone since Damon Hill back in 1996. And this is a moment he will absolutely love. He's never qualified in the top 5 here before. He put his Williams back in 2021 to places that it really shouldn't have been on that qualifying day when he got into Q3. And now he takes the acclaim of the crowd, George Russell, as a pole sitter here at his home race for the first time, and that's 10-2 in qualifying to the Kings Lynn boy at Mercedes this season. For Lando Norris, he'll have to settle for third on the grid, where he's never started at Silverstone before. He was on the front row last year. And then Verstappen and Piastri, Hulkenberg, sixth for him, for a Haas team that hadn't got a top 8 start this season and ended up the fastest Ferrari-powered car in this qualifying session, because Sainz was only 7th fastest, Stroll 8th and Albon 9th and Alonso 10th. Completing the top 10, Charles Leclerc didn't make it out of Q2, and Sergio Perez didn't make it out of Q1.
And Hulkenberg rather, did out-qualify the works Ferrari. That's quite something, in that for this tiny Haas team with the Ferrari power unit and transmission outperforming the works team around a circuit where you need the car underneath you.
So Lewis Hamilton, his consolation, an 11th front row here at Silverstone, which ties the record at a single circuit. I think Lewis had previously achieved this in Abu Dhabi and at the Hungaroring as well.
Kids say, Lewis, they spoil your day, don't they? Lewis will be miffed with that, because he's driven a Stormer, and young George has sneaked in front of him for all the glory.
But you get the glory maybe on a Saturday, as Sir Jackie Stewart is explaining to Lando Norris, and he was involved in the last 1, 2, 3 on the grid. For British drivers get the points on a Sunday. So do join us for the British Grand Prix tomorrow, because, well, what a treat I think we're in for here. And the crowd are going to love this as we hear from the top 3. And Lando Norris, with the microphone in his hand, waiting to tell us all about his qualifying journey with David Coulthard.
Lando Norris, third on the grid for tomorrow's race. I saw you talking to Sir Jackie Stewart there, still smiling, but I suspect a little bit of frustration, because it looked like you were the man laying down the lap times.
I was until the end, but no, I'm happy with P3. 3 Brits look out of the top 3, so pretty cool here. No, good laps by George and Lewis both. They did an excellent job. They put in some nice laps, and a little mistake on my part at the end, but P3 is still good.
You're still good. Well, it's great to hear you're happy with that. You'll be aiming to make the sort of start you did last year, so it's still all to play for.
No, 100%. And it's going to rain again tomorrow, so I'm excited. It's going to be a good race. We're quick. I can bring the fight to George, and I can bring the fight to Lewis, so excited to put on a good show tomorrow.
You have a knowing smile, so this battle for McLaren is not over.
Cheers. Thank you. No, I'm excited. We're going to have some, I hope we're going to have some good battles, so I look forward to it.
Okay, Lando, congratulations. On to the forever young Lewis Hamilton. Congratulations on your 2nd place. The crowd showing their appreciation, Lewis. Did you really think you could pull that lap at the end? It's an incredible 1-2 for Mercedes.
Yeah, well, first off, a big thanks to this incredible crowd. We're so proud to be here. 3 Brits on the front row, or in the top 3 is incredible. And a huge congratulations to George. He did such a great job. We definitely didn't expect to be front row this weekend, but this is huge for us, for our team. The car felt fantastic out there. And so everyone in the garage here, all our team that have come here, really deserve this.
It was a hugely challenging qualifying session. You had the wet with the intermediates at the start. There was people going off. Any particular standout moment apart from that beautiful lap for you? Was there a point where you were thinking, oh, I'm up against it?
No. I think the car, as I said, the car felt great. It was just about getting the tire temperatures at the right place, and sealing the deal when you needed you had the time on track. So I think I was able to do that. I think ultimately there was still time left on the table, which George was able to find. So, but I feel really confident about the car tomorrow, and I think with the conditions we have, we can work together to keep Lando behind.
Okay, well, Lewis, congratulations on getting in the top 3 and second place here at Silverstone. And finally, George Russell, you're on pole position at the British Grand Prix.
Come on. What a feeling, what a feeling. It's at the start of this year. I don't think we could have even dreamt of being on pole here. And, you know, 1-2-4 for Lewis and I, Lando and P3. This is just mega. It's down to all these fans as well. They give us so much energy. So, yeah, thank you so much for that.
6 days ago, you took the victory. Here you are taking the pole. Lewis was saying the car's been feeling great, so he's not surprised that it's a 1-2. But I didn't realize, looking through the free practice, that you guys could really take it to the McLaren.
The car at the moment is feeling so good. It really came alive in quali, and honestly, what a joy to drive around this circuit. And you know, we're riding this wave at the moment, absolutely buzzing. But eyes on tomorrow. We got a race to win, and it's going to be tight with Lando. Max is going to be fast as well. But I'm so excited right now.
Lewis has spoken in the past about the power of the crowd driving him forwards. Are you picking up that mantle and taking some of that energy?
The crowd give us all so much energy. You know, the three of us, I don't think Silverstone could have dreamt of, you know, the 3 Brits in the top 3. So honestly, the support, we just absolutely love it, and we can't wait for the race tomorrow.
Okay, George, congratulations on pole position.
Thank you so much.